Thanks, Greta. Okay. Okay. So, Holly, take us away. And Holly, you might need to unmute.
Am I up? Got it. Sorry. My name is Holly Carlson, and I live here in Big Cottonwood Canyon. I have been very lucky to work with these fine people on the board to create what we have here tonight, and I'm honored to work with everyone on the board, and including my son Anders, whom was sort of the inspiration of the school. So we're very excited tonight, and I'm very excited to have all of you here tonight. Anders wanted to go next.
Hi, my name is Anders Carlson. I'm the student representative on the Engelmann Mountain School board, and I am growing up in the Wasatch Mountains. So, right. That's all I have. That's all.
Great. I'm up next, Catherine Carpenter. I'm a psychotherapist working in private practice in the Valley, and I live here in the mountains of Silver Fork. I grew up in Vermont, and there I learned to value nature, creativity, and hard work through family-run businesses that prioritized connections with self, others, and nature. And I hold these lessons and values dear as my husband and I introduce our 3-year-old daughter to the world around us. I'm so excited for growth and so many possibilities as we launch Engelmann, and I hope to provide the next generation with some of what I was able to experience as a child, and hopefully even more. And that's why I am part of the board and very excited about Engelmann coming up. Sarah.
My name is Sarah Cutler. My husband and I have been residents of Big Cottonwood Canyon for the past 16 years. I spent my childhood growing up in Vermont as well. Actually, Catherine's sister, as you can tell from our voices. I spend my days enjoying the outdoors up here, working as an emergency medicine physician assistant. I coach a youth ski mountaineering team, and I currently just love watching my 4-year-old son and his group of friends grow up in the mountains. I'm part of the board of the Engelmann Mountain School because I feel strongly about bringing an alternative form of education to our community.
And my name is Greta Eliason. I'm a professional skier. I'm a mom of 2 boys, stay-at-home mom, and I actually grew up in Norway. So I went to middle school and high school in Norway. And in my high school experience, I went to a school where I got a diploma in Fri Luftsliv, which is free air life. And I was graded on the same merit as, a math class was the same thing as how good I could build a snow hole or how good I was at skiing. And the reason I want to be a part of this Engelmann Mountain School is because, again, I have 2 boys, and I just think it's so important that they experience life outdoors as well. And I'm really proud to be on this board.
I'm Abigail McComb. I've been with the Silver Fork Co-op for a 1.5 years, going on 2 years now. I am from the East Coast originally. However, I spent about 5 years abroad with my family growing up. I studied music therapy at Appalachian State University, and I've guided in wilderness therapy for about 2.5 years. I am super, super excited to be a part of the Engelmann Mountain School.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Whitkey. I'm a resident here in Big Cottonwood Canyon. Grew up, born and raised in Big Cottonwood Canyon. I'm very honored and excited to be a part of Engelmann Mountain School. And my parents both were very, very involved at Brighton Ski Resort in the industry there. So I actually grew up at the base of Majestic Chairlift there at Brighton Ski Resort, and grew up going to the valley every day for school, riding the bus. And so I'm really excited that there's going to be a school up here. I wish there was one when I was a kid growing up. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And this is just going to be a tremendous opportunity, and we're so excited to have you all joining us. So thank you.
And I want to also quickly introduce Kirsten Walker, and she can introduce herself more as a person we're hoping very much to partnership with.
Thank you, Catherine. My name is Kirsten Walker. I had the good fortune of one of my close friends in Salt Lake Valley sent me a text about a little over a month ago saying, hey, I have this friend who's trying to get this school started up in Big Cottonwood Canyon. Check it out. And I did, and I immediately just got super excited because it combines a lot of my passions in life, which are nature, education, experiential, right? Education specifically. So my background, so you all know, is that I have about 14 years of experience of teaching science in both outdoor ed settings as well as in the classroom. And I've taught 1st through 8th grade science in the classroom for the last 10 years. And I've become excited, of course, the moment I saw, the school's website, like I said, and that excitement has only grown since I've gotten the chance to meet all of the people involved so far. And I'm very hopeful that I'm going to join the team and be part of this exciting adventure. Thank you.
Wonderful. We hope so too. Okay. Moving on. The Silver Fork, sort of to give a foundation of where we're coming from, one important piece is to talk about the Silver Fork Co-op, and Abigail mentioned that quickly. So the Silver Fork Co-op became the unofficial pilot program for Engelmann Mountain School. Over the past 2 years, it has grown and become more specific in its ideological approach to outdoor education. Originally started as just this very small group of people who have lots of little kids up in the community right now. We knew from the onset that being outside was the goal, and we have seen our way into a more academically committed program as well. For example, summer months were held exclusively in our outdoor classroom, while pre-K kids learned science, math, language, and interpersonal skills. We are so lucky to have Abigail McComb as our current co-op teacher and future Engelmann pre-K teacher, and she's going to speak about that co-op program to highlight some examples of how learning at Engelmann School will work and how they already have worked.
All right. So as the Engelmann Mountain School states, my mission in working with the littles is to preserve and nurture each child's natural curiosities, creativity, and sense of wonder throughout their life. And I'd like to illustrate how I do that. So the child-centered approach, I am guided by a child-centered approach, which uses the child's interests and curiosities to educate. I combine the students' natural curiosities for nature and the world around us with a weekly theme. This might look like a child discovering a pile of pine cones beneath an evergreen tree. Through the child's own observations, questions begin to arise. Why does the spruce produce pine cones, but the aspen trees do not? And what roles do trees play? What animals eat those pine cones? What does that smell like, look like, feel like, etc.? Each of these questions bears fruitful discussion. By supporting and teaching to the child's interest, we promote an internal motivation to learn. When the child is empowered to explore their environment, they develop confidence and broaden their own abilities. It is with this enthusiasm to learn that I can incorporate all subject matters into lessons that center around a weekly theme. Place-based learning. The outdoor space offers real-life experiences, allowing new types of exploration, discovery, and learning. The children are encouraged to work together and to problem solve as issues and questions arise. I facilitate and encourage them in these intuitive responses to the environment around us and keep them safe. Supporting the child through real-life challenges allows for concrete experiences that will support the child in learning how to critically think and analyze a situation. When children are supported in this fashion, they gain confidence, with their minds and awareness of their own physical capacities and frequently their limits. They learn how to think, communicate, be safe, and work with themselves and others. We are educating the entire child, the whole child. Hands-on, we do a lot of hands-on experience. This aligns with the child-centered approach for learning. When the child asks questions and demonstrates an interest in a specific topic, I create an opportunity for them to learn through hands-on experiences, or STEAM. STEAM stands for STEAM projects, and that stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So if, for example, when the children have expressed interest in learning about the body, we replicated the pumping heart and used a stethoscope to listen to our own beating hearts. We then incorporated movement with this and hypothesized what would happen to our beating hearts when we ran around versus when we were sitting down and being calm. This led to more questions and observations. We then constructed a model of the lungs to explore that and explore what breathing was like. When a student wants to learn about the solar system, which has happened, we decided to make that the theme for the week. My lesson plans are flexible, and I teach to the child's interests and facilitate hands-on experiences to coincide with that. The results are quite remarkable. Play. Lastly, play is another way of thinking about interpersonal relationships and how they form and function. And I believe Catherine's going to say more about this in some of the research regarding play. I have seen firsthand how play allows the space for children to learn confidence and empathy. Play requires problem solving, communication, emotional regulation, and teamwork. Over the past year and a half, I have worked to introduce emotional focused and problem focused coping skills. Emotional focused coping skills involve helping the child tolerate and manage stress during situations that cannot be changed, while problem focused coping skills empower a child to act to change their position in a situation. My hope is to provide these little humans with the skills they need to be well-adjusted, responsible, and curious wanderers of nature, their minds, and the world around us all. It has been so exciting so far, and I'm looking forward to the next school year.
So up next, we hope you enjoy this following promotional video for the Mountain School, which it includes clips from our co-op. This video also outlines our philosophy and gives a brief view of each of our awesome board members. It also shows the beautiful location of Engelmann Mountain School at the Wasatch Mountain Lodge in Brighton, Utah. So enjoy.
There's no sound.
There's no sound because I muted myself.
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
Okay.
Kat, there's still no sound.
Shoot. Okay, let me try one more time. Sound? No sound?
No.
Okay. Too bad. I can try one more time.
Just in case this doesn't work, I can post the link in the chat as well, and then people can watch it on their own if
That
it
would be
doesn't work.
That would be wonderful, Sam. I'll try one more time to share it and then that's perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Sam.
And
Sorry
Catherine,
for that.
sometimes check like your settings for sound. Sometimes computers, we learned that lesson remote teaching last year a lot.
Yeah.
That might help.
Check my sound settings, like test it.
Through the settings, the system preferences on your computer, or I don't know if you have a Mac, that's what it's called on mine, but
Okay.
sometimes it's just a,
Well, let's give
yeah.
this one more shot, guys. And then if it's not, we'll use Sam's option. Okay.
Still not working, Kat.
Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm not so sure why that's not working.
It's a
Well,
great video, though. You should all click on it and watch it yourselves. We
please.
tested this multiple times and it worked.
It did. It even worked yesterday morning under the same system.
Would, if Sam puts the link in the box, maybe someone else could try screen sharing. It might just be a settings thing on Catherine's computer.
You know, I could try, John, could you turn the volume down for the TV for a second?
Yeah.
I just sent the link, so.
Kat, that was it. I just heard the audio.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
So
that was on my computer, maybe.
Oh.
Well, I'm trying to do a screen share without my headphones. So let me try this. This is the one other option I've got. Let's give it a shot. Okay. Okay. A group of Silver Fork residents in Big Cottonwood Canyon had a vision to create a school that allows thinking, curiosity, and exploration.
A place where students can flourish, a place to foster a type of learning that will inspire them for a lifetime.
And we did it! In partnership with the Wasatch Mountain Lodge as our physical location, we bring you the Engelmann Mountain School. Here at Engelmann Mountain School, we will provide experiential outdoor education for students pre-K through 2nd grade in a private school setting.
As a charitable nonprofit, we believe that we should be helping other charitable nonprofits. So I'm Renee Olson. I'm on the board of the Wasatch Mountain Club Foundation. The foundation owns and manages the lodge. The lodge was built by the Wasatch Mountain Club. The club was established in 1920, and then in 1929 is when they decided to build the lodge, because it was very difficult to go from here over to Park City in one day and then get back down the valley. So the members wanted somewhere to be able to stay. The club still loves this building. And the fact that the building was built and used by people that love the outdoors, we can't think of a better partnership than what we are getting with your school, because that's exactly what you're trying to teach those kids, to appreciate nature and learn how to enjoy it.
Another arm of the Engelmann Mountain School is the Learning Center, which is designed and based by people in the community for all ages. And we're very excited about this.
Drawing on models of outdoor education, self-exploration, and compassion for nature and our neighbors, we welcome students young and old to join us in learning through adventure.
Thanks to Logan for putting that together, and for all who participated in it. You also now have a link if you want to watch it again or share it. So next, as you saw in the video, we have a wonderful partnership with the Wasatch Mountain Lodge, and Renee is here, I believe, and can say a few more words about it.
Hi. We are so thrilled to partner with you guys. We have this building that is used all summer long for people renting it for weddings and family events because it's obviously gorgeous up there. But Jodine is on the call also. She's on the board with me. We have struggled to try and determine how we can use the building all year round because once people find out there's no drive-in access, then they're, oh, okay, well, we can't do that. We have had, that's not to say we haven't had some winter weddings, but it needed to be someone or you guys that live up here. The snow is no issue for you guys. When we explain to people that in January, February, they're going to have about 6 feet of snow that's going to be around the building and such. I mean, if they're not used to it, then they shy away from it. So this is wonderful. This building needs to be used all year round. And that's what Jodine and I went to the Brighton Council and told them this summer that, or excuse me, last summer, that we want to be part of the community. And we are for 3 or 4 months a year, but now we feel like we can do that all year round. And what better way to try to get more people that would like to join the Wasatch Mountain Club, the outdoor group, than raise them in a school up here, because that is what the building has been used for, and that is what our goal is, to let the Big Cottonwood Canyon community use it for not just schools, but for whatever. Anyone that wants to enjoy the outdoors. Jodine, you want to say anything? Okay, I guess that's a no. But no, we are really excited to have those guys up there and enjoying the building. And we're now looking to get the building strengthened because it is 92 years old. And we anticipate that should be done optimistically in about 2 years. And we hope to have a long relationship with Engelmann School and all of the kids.
We do too. We do too. So what I will do is I'll go back to the PowerPoint here, and we can go over a quick photo of this beautiful space, and this is something that you can see on our website as well. So this is the school, and now we're going to move on to the pedagogy and the philosophy that grounds us. And this, I think, really incorporates the multidisciplinary approach of our board. So later you'll hear some more of the school-based academic words and language, but this is really, I think, the interdisciplinary way that our board has come to ground the way that this school will work. So the first point here is about play. Oops, sorry. Is about play. And this was the hardest section for me to write. My parents are both on the call, and we all attended a conference that focused heavily on the neuroscience of play. And this isn't something that would be sort of best suited here. So I'll just say this was the hardest section to write because there's so much to say about it. It is absolutely a personal interest of mine and something deeply researched in many fields, neuroscience, psychotherapy. Hold on just one moment. Evie, do you want to take a bath? How about a bath?
We're putting on the show.
Okay. Speaking of play and the realities of things. So this was the hardest section for me to write because what can be more basic than play? It's so basic that we may underestimate its importance. Neuroscience is now showing it's essential to human development, and pediatricians are prescribing it. When the child gets it right, fun ensues. However, we must think about we don't always get it right. So if we think about successful play allows relationships with peers and teachers to form and helps the child form a positive attitude around learning. Boiled down, play is as vital to development as any need we might encounter. It is our portal for learning about the world and is an emphasis here at Engelmann. As you heard Greta speak, about sort of the international approach, one of the other models we looked at was Finland. And looking at how Finland is handled schools are handled in Finland, and kindergarten specifically, school days there are about 4 hours for 5 to 6 year olds. And while we have full days at Engelmann, 8:30 to 3, to match our typical daily adult schedules, 2 to 3 afternoons a week, we will be using that time for hiking, skiing, or some outdoor adventure. Because really what we see is that the academic space is only needed so much, is only needed in so much time, and the rest of the time really, again, can be about play. Furthermore, Finnish teachers note that their kindergartners don't even realize that they're learning because they're so interested in what they're doing. At these schools, 2 different types of play are encouraged, and this is documented in the Finnish system, which may speak to why kids are having so much fun. That is that there are 2 different types of play: spontaneous or free-form play, and then also guided play. And this is why play is so important. There are so many facets to it. So this model, going back to the Finnish model of play and exploration of ideas, both guided and spontaneous, has great outcomes because it allows the student to develop at their own rate, amongst other things. For example, it was found that late readers and early readers converge in literacy around age 11. So perhaps early interventions may not be necessary and may actually have harmful effects. I certainly don't believe in a hands-off approach, but maybe we can all support the child in their process and timeline. And this is something that we've learned from those models. And then if we speak to the outdoor education piece, one of the key figures in thinking about the way we want to work with this school and the ideology behind it is Kurt Hahn. He was a key figure in the development of experiential education in the early 1900s and the founder of Outward Bound. He felt there were 10 principles of education that the outdoors could speak to most profoundly. I will briefly describe some of this list. I think they're all great, but for the sake of time, I'm going to highlight just a few of them. The first idea is the primacy of self-discovery, meaning that learning happens best with emotion, challenge, and the requisite support. Those are his words, the requisite support, meaning that learning is not just a cognitive endeavor, it's a whole body thing. And I think Abby spoke to that really well when she was giving examples of how the little ones learn up here already. Responsibility for learning. We hope that our kids at Engelmann can become increasingly responsible for directing their own personal and collective learning. A child-centered approach gives students that respect to be responsible for their own learning. And of course, if we know that they're able to think about how they want to learn, well, now we've created lifelong learners. Empathy and caring is another key factor. Learning is fostered best in communities where students and teachers' ideas are respected and where there's mutual trust. Another point is success and failure. All students need to be successful if they are to build the confidence and capacity to take risks and meet increasingly difficult challenges. But it's also important for students to learn from their failures, to persevere when things are hard, and to learn to turn challenges into opportunities. So this is, I think, nature is one of the best ways to reach limits and learn how to deal with that. Collaboration and competition. Individual development and group development are integrated so that the value of friendship, trust, and action, group action, is clear. At Engelmann, we emphasize small groups so that these very important interpersonal relationships can form. And lastly, I want to highlight this piece because I think at Engelmann, we're trying to create a space for our students and also a space for our teachers. Solitude and reflection. Students and teachers need time alone to explore their own ideas and thoughts, to make their own connections and create their own ideas. They also need time to exchange their reflections with others. At Engelmann, we aim to provide teachers with more time than traditional schools in the US in order to better meet their needs so that our kids can be a priority. This is really, I think, a piece of modeling behavior as well, that if our teachers can model the way that we want our kids to think and learn in the world, then nothing can be better than that. And then lastly, service and compassion. And really what Kurt Hahn meant by this was that we care for ourselves and others, and that by caring for ourselves, we're able to care for others. And so these are the pedagogical and philosophical ways that we're informing our work at Engelmann. As you saw in the video, we are two branches. So the private school for pre-K through second grade and the Learning Center. The private school is a more direct evolution of the co-op, and the Learning Center broadens our vision to all ages with a hope for much community involvement. We're going to hear from Sarah a bit about the private school, and then from Holly, who will speak about the Learning Center.
Great. I'm going to give just a little bit of detail about our private school. So as you all know by now, 3 years ago, we started the process of developing a school in Big Cottonwood. We looked at all of the avenues of which way the school could go. We looked into being a charter school. We looked into being a satellite classroom, a co-op, and a private school. We landed on, in order to provide small class sizes, the autonomy to create a place-based learning curriculum, and to secure this amazing location in the mountains, a private school is the best fit to accommodate all of these factors. So here are a few more details about the private school and the logistics of it. In our inaugural year, we'll plan on having just 2 classes. One class that's a pre-K 3-4 ages, and one elementary class that's mixed ages between kindergarten and second grade. We've seen the benefit of our mixed age learning environment within our co-op, and how the kids really benefit from one another in that environment. In future years, we look to expand to more ages, but we wanted to start small next year. So one of the invaluable elements that Engelmann is going to bring is the small class sizes that you've heard a lot about. Our pre-K class will have only 6 children in it, and that'll be taught by our wonderful teacher, Abigail. So 6-to-1, pretty great class ratio for the young kids. Our kindergarten through second grade class will have 10 to 12 students for one teacher. Our board is currently interviewing prospective teachers who align specifically with our teaching philosophy and who are also enthusiastic to teach in a creative way. As you met Kirsten earlier, she is definitely has the same values as us and a lot of experience. We value our teachers and will develop a work environment that allows time to create and prepare and deliver the material. So we'll also most likely have a third educator on the team. This will bring the student-teacher ratio even lower, which has just been proven to help young students immensely. Of note, logistics-wise for the private school, we don't have any formal transportation available this year from the bottom of the canyon. However, we're happy to help facilitate a carpool program for students not living in the canyon. That being said, most of us who live up here do commute to town for work, and it's only about a 20-minute drive from the mouth to Brighton. Keeping in mind that this is done on weekdays, not the weekends that we're all known to be so busy during ski season. And then this week has been an anomaly with the snowstorms and intermittent road closures in Big Cottonwood. In my 16 years up here, maybe less than a handful of days where my commute was limited. So it may sound daunting to commute from the base of the canyon, but it really is feasible. And we hope to attract and include students who are living in the valley. So this next slide is more about kind of what sets Engelmann Mountain School apart. Why choose Engelmann Mountain School, and what's different from this school from others in the valley? So the biggest thing is Engelmann Mountain School is an integrated learning school. It has an emphasis on place-based education and will use an authentic assessment for student evaluations. I'm going to define some of these terms to everybody. Integrated learning is bringing together diverse disciplines in a comprehensive manner, enabling students to develop a meaningful understanding of the complex associations and influences within a topic. It's there to develop self-awareness, to gain leadership, teamwork, and communication skills. A place-based education, as you've heard several times already in this presentation, place-based education is an approach that connects learners and communities to increase student engagement, boost learning outcomes, impact communities, and promote understanding of the world around us. Really to be grounded and engaged with the surrounding community. It's an immersive learning experience that places students in their local environment, providing opportunities and experiences as a foundation for the study of language arts, mathematics, social studies, science, and other subjects across the curriculum. All students at Engelmann will spend much of the day outside, beyond a typical recess period. The day starts with a 5 to 10 minute hike up to the lodge and classroom. Lesson plans and classes will be held outside as often as possible, and the natural world will be integrated into the classroom. The authentic assessment will really allow for the teachers to fit the assessment process into the material, which allows the assessment to meet the needs of the moment, the place, and the material. Frequent checks on the students' understanding of the material rather than waiting to the end of the unit in their specific test to identify shortcomings in a type of assessment that allows for growth. The small class sizes of Engelmann Mountain School will allow for individualized assessments best suited to each student's needs. And as Catherine mentioned earlier, with the outdoor education, we are going to have at least 2 afternoons per week that are dedicated to outdoor pursuits. This will be in the form of structured ski lessons in the winter, hiking or biking in the fall.
Holly, you're still muted.
Sorry, let me try this again. So in addition to our daily school activities, we will have an extension of Engelmann called the Learning Center. Here we will offer master classes and workshops for sharing various skills and ideas. And these workshops will be designed and presented by members of the community in collaboration with the school board and students. We have so many talented and knowledgeable people in the community, and not just in Big Cottonwood, but I'm talking the whole community, including all over the world, perhaps. The Learning Center will be a place to share your talents and skills, as well as learn from others. The subjects offered will vary from literary workshops to hands-on projects to field adventures. And as Kat said earlier, will be open to all ages. This will include some of the older students as well as adults, and if appropriate, we'll have younger students in there as well. So if you have a skill or a talent that you would like to share, you can propose your workshop or your course idea to our board, and then once vetted and approved, we'll put your workshop on the schedule. Keep an eye out on our website for upcoming workshops and the schedule for next fall and winter.
Great, great. I'm going to go a little off script, and I think I'd like to just pause for a 5-minute sort of mid-section Q&A. We've just given a lot of information. And before we go into the nitty-gritty of tuition and the fundraising piece of the presentation, I wonder if we could just stop here, and if there are any questions about the pedagogy or the ideological approach or the way these two arms are going to function. Yeah, go for it. Scotty.
Thanks, Kat. So I want to start by saying I have a ton of questions. So I've obviously, I know we've got a Q&A here at the end. So in terms of the question that immediately came up, I think it's makes sense to ask right now, given the presentation we just saw. What, if anything, is the difference in terms of cost between the private school and the Learning Center? And also, like, are the schedules going to overlap, or are they going to be separate? I mean, they're two separate things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And because it's a combo question, I think I might just answer it and then look towards Sarah and Holly if I'm not answering it completely. The Learning Center is going to be offered as a workshop / event, sort of individual pieces. And so it's not going to be a continuous academic year. You know, for example, you might have one course that lasts a couple of months for adults, and then that course would be priced for that particular subject. Whereas the private school is going to be for a specific age group that will be the entire academic year. So the cost is going to be wildly different, because the Learning Center you can pay per course, and the private school is for a very specific age group. Does that answer your question, Scotty?
It does. And again, I've got a ton more, but I want to be respectful of everybody that's on here and getting through the presentation, so I can table the rest for now.
Great question. Any other questions coming up for people? Scotty, if you'd like to ask one more, go for it.
No, I just want to say thanks.
Okay.
So this is Barbara. I'm wondering, have the kids this year been dealing with any of the community related to the COVID? It might be a difficult time to do that, but I know there are some older people in the community that are having a hard time. Would there be any opportunity just to drop some artwork off or something like that? Would that be something your school would be doing?
It's a lovely idea, and it sounds like you're talking about something more immediate, Barbara. And so that would be the co-op that we have right now. And I think Sarah and I and Greta, who have kids in that co-op, would love to talk with you more about that.
Great, thank you.
Sarah, would you agree? Greta, would you agree?
I bet Abigail would be happy to put that in the curriculum for the next year or two. The crafts from my son are stacking up on the table. So if he can make crafts for others in the community, I think that's a great idea.
They'd love them. Thanks.
And Barbara, I don't think you were there, but for Christmas, they actually did a caroling, and it was absolutely wonderful. So maybe they could even go to someone's house and carol for a little bit outside too. Give them a reason to, practice.
You know, that caroling got really great reviews, and I had to be at a meeting, so I couldn't be there. But the neighbors loved it. It was so dear.
Okay, we have maybe time for just one more question and then we'll hop back into the material if anybody has. Yeah, Wendy.
Really interesting. Hasn't been enough emphasis, but I think a great part of a school like this is community involvement of all ages and service. You mentioned service, so I just want to reinforce that. I think that was really wonderful. You said that, Barbara, and I think that that's an important part of children's education.
Great, absolutely. I totally agree. And so I think with that, let's go back to the slides, and Sarah will talk about the tuition and the fundraising goals and the money side of all of how to make all of this wonderful ideological stuff happen.
Well, Catherine actually just put that very well. You can come up with all these amazing dreams and goals and create this beautiful ideologic learning environment, but it really can only happen with funding. And as previously mentioned, we looked at a lot of different avenues for creating a school, but the development of the Engelmann Mountain School has been best suited as a private school because this allows us the autonomy of small class sizes, the extremely unique location of this historic building located right in the mountains of the Wasatch. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that comes with a price. So the next couple of slides outline our tuition costs and the sliding scale for financial aid. So we will strive to make this as accessible to all economic demographics as possible. We'll do that only by the support of our community through fundraising. The more we raise through fundraising and grants, the more financial assistance we'll be able to offer, lowering the tuition costs that are listed here. These tuition costs are without any fundraising met. So we absolutely hope to be able to offer lower costs than this if we're able to raise money. So there is a financial aid application within the school application. Obviously, this is optional. If people don't want to disclose their finances, then they don't have to, but then they have to pay tuition, full tuition. So we look forward to having open discussions about how we can best accommodate each family to make Engelmann Mountain School accessible to everybody. The fundraising goal this year is hefty. It's $200,000 for our inaugural year. This, we're off to a great start already. We've already raised $16,000 before we even started this event. With very minimal advertisement about that. This amount will help us with the capital necessary to start a school with a strong curriculum, excellent teachers, low student-teacher ratio, and our location. Donations can be specified to help towards specifically scholarship funds, towards supplies, extracurricular activities, and location costs. Donations up to $5,000 receive a beautiful handmade plaque by Anders Carlson, who you met earlier, who's an amazing woodworker, metal worker, just an amazing artist. Donations of $10,000 or more have the option to name a program after their donation. The link to our nonprofit GoFundMe account is found on the link on this slide or through our website donation tab. Again, the tuition costs on the previous slide are subject to change, always for the better, if we can raise enough fundraising money. So please reach out regarding tuition questions. We're happy to discuss options to make this accessible for everyone. We also have a beautiful t-shirt campaign if you'd like to help support Engelmann Mountain School and receive something to wear on your own. And this link is also found through our website.
Okay.
Sam? Oh, yep, you got it.
Am I up next? All right, so thank you all for joining us. And I just wanted to mention lastly that we are on social media on Instagram at Engelmann Mountain School. and on Facebook. So follow us there. We should have some cool stuff just to stay up to date with us. Also, feel free to visit our website and learn more about Engelmann and its philosophy to a new educational approach. To see more about our board members, the application process, donations, and more. We are tentatively planning as well on a summer social event at the Wasatch Mountain Lodge in July to officially welcome Engelmann Mountain School to this beautiful location this upcoming school year. So please stay connected with us in all of those ways and more if you would like to join.
I just want to quickly say thank you so much for the community members of past, present, and future support. Already we've had such a lovely community response, and we all feel extraordinarily lucky to live in a place that would be so interested in fostering a school for the next generation, and also a school for all of us as adults too. I think the Learning Center is going to be able to become something that the community uses for all. If you would like a digital copy of this PowerPoint, which has embedded links to the fundraising, to the t-shirt campaign, please put your email in the chat section. Additionally, Sam, do you think you could put the t-shirt link and the GoFundMe into the chat section, those links just directly? They can both be accessed through our website. And I wonder if you could add them to the chat.
Yes, sure thing.
That'd be great.
Just give me a minute.
Yeah, of course, of course. So now we'll stop sort of the informational section and open up for Q&A.
And I'd love to just pop in here. It's not really a question, but I just didn't say this earlier, but I actually live down in Salt Lake City, just so everyone knows. But I have been living here for about 8 years in Salt Lake, and have been an avid outdoor enthusiast my whole life, and have spent many wonderful days playing really hard up in Big Cottonwood Canyon. So that's a connection that I have. But I will say that living down in the valley, I do think it is realistic that we could get some members of the Salt Lake Valley community interested in coming up the canyon to the school. So I'm definitely already thinking and putting feelers out to people down here, down canyon. But I would encourage everyone to spread the word, because that's really a huge, that makes such a difference. I've worked with several independent schools throughout my career, and fundraising is a never-ending process for private schools. It's just the way it is. But it really helps when we all just put that word of mouth out there and spread it. And you never know who's gonna get excited, just like I did, when I saw the website. So.
So I just want to pipe in just after Kirsten talks, and I mean, how excited we are to have you even interested in our school, because when we set out to, look further for teachers who align with our philosophy, the first thing that came to mind was the Teton Science School up in Jackson, Wyoming. And then lo and behold, the first thing on Kirsten's application and resume was her training at Teton Science School. So we couldn't be, I think, this is just an amazing relationship, but also speaks to, if you just spread the word, we live in an amazing community of diverse people, well, diverse but like-minded people in the Salt Lake Valley. So reach out to your friends and family, and I think we actually have a lot of people who would be interested in something like this.
All right, you guys, how much time do you have? So first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody involved, right? Like everyone on the board, everyone who's been working on this for the last couple of years. I also want to apologize in advance and set the expectation that you may hear a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old here, because I can, so I think you can. But yeah, so, you know, I love the idea. I think this is an amazing concept. And in fairness, I also feel like I underprepared in terms of research. But I just want to, you know, make sure that this disclaimer is out there first, that some of these questions I think might be a little tough. And it's just because this is such a critical, you know, time for our kids. It's formative. And, you know, for us, this is like, we don't want to screw it up. So again, I think this is really amazing, but I do have some questions. The first one is, are there data and or case studies that you guys can point to around this concept, and how, if we did integrate later into, say, public school or a different private school, you know, where our kids would end up in terms of curriculum, being on the same page as other students, and, you know, standardized testing. I don't know if standardized testing comes in at the early days, and like the pre through, the K through second, but curious how this concept stack ranks for those kind of standard metrics, so to speak.
I can just jump in on that real quick, like from the educator side of things, and say, so I think this point, or maybe it was Catherine and I were talking about it the other day, but I'm trying to remember where I just like was rereading this, but you know, young children, it might have been just in the presentation tonight. A lot of times, like having worked with young kids, you know, I was the science specialist at Roland Hall for 1st through 5th grade for 6 years. And I would often see, so there's children are going to reach developmental milestones at different times, right? So you're going to have, say, one child of yours, maybe your 3-year-old started walking at a certain time, and then your 18-month-old might start walking probably at a different time than your other child. And that's just normal. There's going to be variation among all children on when they're going to reach particular milestones. That's what's so wonderful about the school taking a student-centered approach. And what's so crucial at that young age is that students don't lose confidence in themselves, because sometimes if you track kids so early on in development, even up through middle school years, like tracking in math, for instance, there's a lot of research showing the detrimental effects of tracking kids. And so saying like, oh, so-and-so has this problem where, you know, they're not reading as well as, you know, these other kids over here. So we're going to put them in this group that gets special attention for reading help. And then the kids pick up on that pretty quick at a very young age. And it actually has very harmful effects. So on the flip side of that, if you can avoid doing things that track kids in those formative years, one, it's just allowing nature to take its course, because, you know, student A might start reading, you know, really well at an earlier age than student B, but then maybe 8 years later, they're going to be in the same spot, because that's just how things work sometimes. So I would have students who are really struggling in 1st grade with certain skills, and, you know, parents would get pretty worried at times, which is understandable. Of course, I'm a parent too. I have a 3-year-old as well. And then the next year, you know, you might see this like massive growth spurt in like just mental, you know, cognitive development. And all of a sudden they're right where all their peers are, or they're even more advanced. I know that's going off. I could go off on a lot of different tangents and specifics around that topic, and I'm always happy to spend more time at the end giving some examples. But I know in Finland, in Finnish schools in particular, they don't track students, and they actually don't give standardized tests unless a student chooses to. I think they can at an earlier age, like 6th-ish grade, but they actually don't do a standardized test until quite late in their schooling, like in the high school level, and they outperform, like, by and large, almost all the countries in the world on how they're performing on that standardized test in high school. So yes, so I would say that a program like this, I feel very confident it could prepare students to get back into the mainstream schooling come, you know, third grade, for instance, if the school ends at second. And I do think, like, we, as, you know, if I join the school and start working more here, that's something we do need to present more concisely to parents. And that's a really excellent question you have, because I think it's exactly what came to mind for me as both teacher, parent, you know, all those hats. Like, I was like, people are going to ask that question, and that's a very important one. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Kirsten, for sharing your background. I also know that Sharon Dennett, who is also my mother and a psychoanalyst and educator herself of many years, has a little something to say too.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's a great question, and I think pulling together the literature would be really, really important. But there's actually a huge body of literature on this. I mean, my first career was as an educator, and I think what we know about child development is that it's very variable in the early years, particularly, and reading doesn't really stabilize until around grade 3, age 8 to 9. And even then, there's a lot of variability after that. The second thing I'd say is that if children can use the individual developmental lines that are their strengths early on, then they build in a tremendous amount of confidence, and their weaknesses can be pulled together easily from that base. So given the individual variability in kids that shows up particularly in the early years, this kind of a learning style, which goes back not just to outdoor education, which has its own trend of literature, but also Maria Montessori and some of the child-based developmental literature. These two threads come together in this kind of a learning developmental opportunity that really is just, it sets kids up really well, whatever you want to do going forward, whether you want to continue this kind of education or you want to go back into the more traditional school system. Generally, there's quite a lot of literature that this is very, very helpful. The third thing I'd say is it also is important that it aligns with the family's values. If the family itself is really more interested in a more traditional approach, and that's probably going to be more stressful than trusting the process here through the pre-K through third grade. So there has to be a matching of family values with this kind of an approach. And the last thing I'd say is, if you want to have innovative, creative people, this is a great way to start them. And as you can see, these two young women who are part of the board here grew up very much with this approach through 3 generations, because my family was also involved in outdoor education. So I think it really does set people up to find their own strengths and their own voice. So I think it's a fantastic program. And as a part-time resident of Big Cottonwood Canyon, I'm really excited about it, and also very excited about Barbara's idea of finding a way to bring the larger community in Big Cottonwood to link up with these little kids, because all of us need little people around to bring joy to our lives. And these guys have done a great job through the COVID era with Abby's help. So just, that's my 2 cents.
Doug Dennett, I should say, also Dad.
Well, I'll try not to take up too much time. I agree with everything that's been said, and this has really been a wonderful presentation. I have learned a great deal. My bona fides here are that I am a child psychiatrist, and I've been a student of play and maybe a little bit of the scholarship of play for a long time. So I could talk at some length about that, but I won't because Catherine's already summarized it very, very nicely. I'll say three things in follow-up to what Kirsten said. Look, standardized testing's been the bane of education in this country. Whether we'll be able to get away from it or not, I don't know. But it really has not helped the educational process. It's helped politically, but we don't want to talk too much about politics tonight. So that's the first thing that I would say, that standardized testing is. The second thing that I would say is that here in Vermont, I'm not sure that Vermont has more homeschooling than any other state, but there's an awful lot of homeschooling in Vermont. And when the students move from their homeschooling, regardless of how you look at it, to the public schools, they're always a grade, if not two, ahead. I mean, so there's something to be said just empirically for that. And then the third thing that I'll say, which will be a little bit personal and probably my dear wife will chastise me later, but Catherine and Sarah have an older sibling, a brother, and he was in a public school system, a very progressive public school system. When he was first and second grader, and everybody was concerned because he wasn't reading at whatever they thought he should be reading, first and second grade. Okay, so in first and second grade, according to standardized testing, he wasn't reading very well. In the fifth grade, he was reading Tolkien. So Kirsten, you're absolutely right. The flowering of how kids develop, we have to keep always in mind. And that is what's so wonderful about the integrative approach that Abby and all of you are put together.
Oh, Wendy, yes.
Okay, I don't need it. I love the presentation, and it just and I just want to share with those of you who are parents, it just makes my heart burst with joy, because those of you who know my son, he was raised, again, like Catherine and Sarah, in an environment that really stressed outdoor education. We lived in a small mountain town in Colorado. We had outdoor schools for preschool, and we had a private outdoor school that went, I can't remember, several grades higher than that. But our public school, because we lived in the mountains and we were in the city school district, they never cared about what we did. And we had an incredible outdoor education component. I just credit that for me raising an amazing young man, and for my community of incredible children who have gone on to follow their passions. And I think passion is what we are looking for here. We're trying to help kids find their passions in life. And that can't always happen sitting at a desk in a classroom. That's all.
And I think you're right that it's about passion, because I think everyone's speaking passionately about their experiences.
Yeah, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, please.
Just to get back to Scotty, back to your question. I think it also, as mentioned before, it is a very good question of how would our children, our students, integrate back into the classroom in a more formalized setting, because they will have to do that at some point. Absolutely agree with you. There are studies out there. We can get you those links to those. I also want you to know, and I think you're aware as well, that we're not a bunch of hocus pocus, not schooling our kids. A lot of us have graduate degrees, actually come from a public school background. I'm not against public schools at all. I think it's a great opportunity. I think, we're looking for something a little bit outside the box as we see how our education is developing these days, and new studies are arising. Catherine actually has outlined in the past, there are specific ways, and Kirsten knows too, specific ways of assessing the child to their specific grade levels that are acceptable when you matriculate back into other programs. That data is out there, and we can absolutely get that for you.
Yeah, and we would also be planning to use, standards. So like standards, we were careful not to throw that language in there because it gets confused a lot of times with standardized testing. But, teachers, whether you're in this type of school or another type, use standards are incredibly helpful, right? They definitely tell us like where a student is at with their learning and their progress in different areas. And that's definitely, a tool that will be used because, and in, the Finnish school system too, they use that as well. The difference is just that they don't really track the children based on how they're meeting those standards. So every kid is going to be different, right? You think of just an individual, like you lay out a list of 100 standards for like everything from social emotional learning to reading skills to writing skills, science, knowledge, on and on. And where a particular child will fall on that list of standards, like whether they're not yet meeting or exceeding that standard, is going to be completely different than what this other child looks like. Just because we're all individuals, we're all going to have those unique strengths, weaknesses, and but it helps like the kids get involved in their own learning, and it helps them see like, oh, I'm really doing awesome right over here, and here's where I still need to keep working. And using language like I'm not there yet is really like, using also growth mindset language. So if you haven't read the Mindset book by Carol Dweck, that's like pretty great, starting place for learning about growth mindset, or but just even the language we use, and just keeping everything very, positive in terms of you're going to get there, you're not there yet. And I know I keep going off a little on tangents, but wanted to just throw that in there.
Hey, can I say something as well? I'd like to speak to kind of your question, Scotty, and then also my personal experience in the classroom. And I mentioned this a little bit in what I was saying earlier, what I presented on earlier, but so the child approach, child-centered learning, what that looks like for me is in the classroom with these kids, and I won't say any names just for their own privacy, but having one student who is so interested in numbers and patterns, and I just go with that with them. And now this student, he can count beyond 100. He's counting by 2s to 100, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, by 10s, by 5s. And he continues to show interest in that. And so I'm like, okay, I don't remember learning how to count by 5s till I was like in 1st or 2nd grade, but you're 4 and this is something you're interested in, I'm going to go there with you. And then another student who's really interested in words and writing, and wants me to write out sentences and messages, and wants to trace that. And like, if that's something that she's showing interest in and she's 3, I'm all about it. Like, and that is so fun too. And it goes beyond that too, not just like these basic kind of milestones, but like when we're outside and suddenly they're curious, I say something about the food chain and they're like, well, what's the food chain? And they want to learn about, what animals eat other animals and how that all works. And we've talked about how everything gets their energy, or the sun is at the beginning of every food chain. And suddenly, they're learning the basic concepts of photosynthesis and how we all are dependent on the sun, and the plants get that's where plants get their energy from. And these animals eat these plants. And I don't know, it's just, it's hard not like having this idea of tracking, because that's the education that I had was very much standardized testing, like what, there was a strong focus in my family on grades and how performative you were on tests and such. And so like, I am constantly checking myself. It's kind of in the back of my head, like, okay, are they meeting their milestones? Like, how are they according to, whatever. And every time I pull those milestones out and I look at them, they're all like right there, like, or far beyond, my kiddo who's counting to pass 100 by fives, and I think that it does serve some importance and just checking like, okay, well, where are they at? And that's not how I dictate my teaching and learning and experiences with them. It's so much more fun and just to let them take that control. And like I said, then it builds confidence and awareness around their abilities. And it's just been so wonderful to get to experience that side of it. And I know, Kirsten, you have much more experience with all of that, but that's just been my experience thus far.
No, that was spot on. And I think I heard at my first meeting with the board, people talk about just how one child in your group, Abby, it's like teaching the other. So the one who's excited about math, that excitement then just like moves to the other children catch on to that excitement, and they get excited about math too because of that. And then because they're a smaller group and you have that freedom and time to latch on to the things that they show interest in, it also gives the time to let the kids do some of the teaching to each other, which is so empowering for them. And as soon as their confidence starts growing in one area, they won't feel as bad if they're struggling in another area, because and when they know, oh, well, I was able to help this person over here with this skill, and then when I struggled, so and so helped me, and it's kind of this give and take back and forth.
Kirsten, that give and take, I'm gonna thank you. I'm gonna cut you off just to make sure that more questions can be answered, and to come back to Scotty, because I know he said that he had some more questions, because I think we could all speak for such a long time because kids are so engaging. So Scotty, do you have more questions that you'd like to ask, or anybody else?
Yeah, I do. And to your point, anybody else, if there's one of those little hand raised things, I'm happy to give up the floor, so to speak. But a couple of things I just want to mention real quick. So first of all, I grew up in public schools. I would probably echo Doug's sentiment around the standardized testing being the bane of our school system. That's for me more intuitive, or based on my own experience. Sadly, though, it is still, how kids get into college, et cetera. So especially my boys aren't going to have any help with any kind of, they're going to have to get in by merit, right? If that makes sense. So anyway, that is, my position. Again, this is, I appreciate everyone's passion, and I do want to just reiterate that I absolutely love this idea and this concept. But I think that's an important question. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the answer. Okay, so the next question I have, and probably Kirsten, I think directed to you, which also, by the way, we try to praise in this household, praise effort based on DWEC and fixed versus growth mindset. So absolutely, hopefully on the right track thus far. But I'm curious around the curriculum. So once we do get past the preschool, and Abby, I've seen you in action. You're phenomenal with the kids, and I love I think it's a Montessori, right? The student-centered concept. I love that. But once we get into where the kids typically get measured a little bit more, I'm curious, like, what are the curriculums? Does it continue in this student-centered vein, or is there a particular curriculum for math, reading, writing, just your basic kind of curriculum, so to speak?
Kirsten, go for it.
Yeah. Well, kind of something I've been talking to the board about is just building, that integrated learning that was mentioned in the presentation. So when I worked so actually the two private schools I've worked at in Salt Lake have been the Roland Hall and the McGillis School, which are both located in downtown Salt Lake. Speaking of more traditional, rigorous academic school setting, Roland Hall especially was the most, it's one of the top rigorous schools here in Utah as far as private schools, and McGillis is up there as well. And I was really fortunate to get to work at a school though that valued the integration of science into both math and literacy learning. So when I worked at Roland Hall, we really strove. We were in a phase of trying to align ourselves with the next generation science standards, which had come out a while, a few years prior to when I started working there, but the school had yet to really get the wheels turning and address some of those newer, really cool standards actually. So we started working on, I worked very closely with every single classroom teacher, first grade through fifth grade, and we integrated science. So they would come see me for a science lab lesson, but then they also did science with their classroom teachers, and it was through reading and writing and math as well. So I have a depth of resources in terms of creating units that hit all the standards. So the Common Core and standards you may have heard of, but those are national standards for reading, writing, and math. And then those align with the next generation standards. So when we created our units at Roland Hall, everything was in alignment with kind of what's considered to be the best national standards that we have right at this time.
And I just want to interject quickly, Kirsten, that we are meeting the NGSS, the National Science Standards at our school right now. So the pre-K standards, we are already meeting them. So this idea of child-centered does not preclude academic rigor and meeting standards. They're very, very able to be integrated. And so I just want to say that we're already doing that. And that's why we're learning about solar systems. And that's why the kids learn about gravity and cause and effect. And I mean, these are the principles that build on so that physics is understood, that this is already happening. So it's not as if we're doing something new, it's already there.
Totally, yeah. And I just say that, there's a lot of research too that shows the power that science has in hooking children's, really getting them engaged in different topics. And there's been a lot of research through the Lawrence Hall of Science and UC Berkeley. They've created a bunch of curriculum, but one route, one of their various curricula is called Seeds of Science, Roots of Reading. And it's all based on the research around how much, helping students learn to read nonfiction and access nonfiction, how powerful that is for building their reading and writing skills. So there's a lot of wonderful resources for integrating and not just hitting the science standards. Me being, I know my background is in science, but I also have a lot of background in hitting those literacy, math, and writing. And the cool thing about connecting the learning and integrating it is that you save time in transitioning. And Catherine and I were talking about that the other day. That's why in some schools that focus and do more topic or thematic based units, rather than you learn science over here for an hour, now you're going to go over here and learn English. A lot of time gets wasted in the transition between subjects areas or disciplines. And so when you keep the theme connected and students are doing reading, writing, math, science all together, and social studies too, history is totally in there as well. then there's just this natural, there's a natural ebb and flow back and forth from, discipline to discipline. And there's also just much less time lost in transition. And by transition, I don't just mean like getting up and moving to a different classroom. That's where time gets lost for sure. But it's also the transition in their heads of thinking, following one train of thought and having to then jump into a new train of thought. And so I think a lot more can get accomplished in a much smaller amount of time when you're doing integrated learning. And that's probably why like kindergartners in Finland only go for 4 hours a day and accomplish just as much, if not more, than kindergartners, around the world. So.
Thanks. I'm just also being cognizant of time and wanting us to be able to answer as many questions as possible. So back to the questions.
Anyone else? I want to say that I've always kind of, again, intuitively thought that if someone could teach conceptual mathematics before arithmetic, like we'd have way more engineers and astronauts out there in the world, right? So I love what you're saying there. That's awesome. All right, so around tuition, in terms of the numbers that you guys put out for, what the full cost would be, I guess my only curiosity around this is, does that 200K target have to be hit in order to provide financial aid to families, or is that still something that's doable? And two-part question, I think it'll be quick to answer. Is it based on expected 6 students, or is there some wiggle room around if somebody doesn't end up showing up?
So I'll try to jump in. So Scotty, we, in starting a school, there's a lot of parts to it. We created our budget on what our concrete costs are. And then we backtracked from there to our number of students, and wanting to stay to the very low teacher to student ratio, because I think that's so beneficial. So we, based off of tuition, we have covered our costs of making the school run. But that is based off of 6 kids in the pre-K class, 10 kids in the K-2 class. We'll cover our costs if we have 0 fundraising. Okay, that there's fluctuation on based off of that. How many people will we have to accept at full tuition versus will that offset those who we can offer financial aid to? Now, if we can raise our goal of 200,000 is a lofty goal. It's a great goal. If we can get all of that, even better. But we don't need to reach that goal in order to make this school run, if that makes sense. Yes, the difference would be we will have more, the less money we can raise, the more students will have to pay full tuition, which is not what we want. We don't want to fill the school with, one economic demographic that's paying full tuition. We want to offset that as much as we can. And that's where the fundraising goals come in.
And I'm going to add to that quickly, Sarah, that we're using a model that Rowland Hall and some of the other schools use, which is a financial aid bucket. And so the earlier you apply and apply for financial aid, that bucket will be available to you first. So the reason that we do that is because we know that we cannot apply financial aid equally forever and always, because if somebody comes and says that the day before we'd like to have our child come and we have room and we accept them, we can't commit that we'll have the same type of financial aid available because people will stagger their acceptance over the time. So the earlier that one family applies for financial aid, the more financial aid will be available to that family, because that will be when our coffers are full, if that's so to say. So there also will be financial aid available in a sort of a fluctuating manner, and that seems to be consistent with what the other private schools are doing.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I've been kind of in and out. We're having rough bedtime over here, but I am kind of curious about the application process and like what you would be looking for in a pre-K student and family.
That's a great question, Kate.
And go over that. Sorry if you did already.
No, we didn't go over that. And that's also, that's on me. The application isn't up yet on our website. It will be here, hopefully ASAP, exclamation point to the nth degree. I'm finishing writing it up. And it's really more about talking with the parents about what they're interested in what the child needs. So an application is just going to go over the basic demographics of the child, of the family, and then looking at if the parent has any concerns. So for example, talking with one family, and not in this scenario, but another scenario, they had a child who they thought might be developmentally delayed due to a premature birth. And so that would be something that you would want on an application so that we could talk with the family about what their concerns and needs might be. So an application is really about understanding the family and the child. And then we would do an in-person interview with that child just to see where they're at, what they are like, how they interact with people. And so an application is really looking at that type of material. I don't know if that answers, if that feels good.
Well, you know, it's a bit early for us to know that much, but just kind of curious about, you know, if the school does grow over the next few years and there's a lot of interest in, especially from people down in the valley, if there's any priority that might be given to people who live near Brighton.
Yes, we would like this to be something that the community can be a part of. And so, yes, I think that's something we've all committed to, and please, people on the board, correct me if I'm misspeaking.
And Kate, that actually goes back to the financial aid question too. We will strive our best to first and foremost make this accessible to everyone in our community as a priority, I believe.
Other questions? And Scotty, if there are more, please take the time to answer or to ask the questions so that we can answer them.
You know, honestly, that really is it. I don't, yeah, I don't have anything else. Those were the important ones to me. I appreciate you guys fielding them. Thanks so much for putting the presentation together.
Yeah. Other questions? Well, I will say that I'm so thrilled to have to be able to speak with the community about this school, and I'm so excited for the school. Anybody else on the board have some final words?
I just want to say thank you so much, Kat, for all your work on this presentation. It's incredible. Thank you so much.
We just want to say thank you for everyone coming tonight. Really appreciate the support.
Jeff, I see a hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry I didn't put my video on earlier. I was eating dinner. I am one of the town councilmen, so my name might have looked familiar. So I want to say from the town's perspective, how excited we are to have a school like this up here. The other part of that you don't know is I'm a 28-year educator. I'm a school administrator with a master's in education as well. And when I first heard about the school, I have to say I was a little skeptical. I wasn't really sure kind of who was behind it and really what it was all about. So that's what made me join tonight. And I have to say I'm really, really impressed, both with the research that's been put into it, as well as, you know, the background that the board has. I really think what you guys are doing is fantastic. I know Scotty was asking some questions that are really, really good questions. And I have to say, somebody who's been a lifelong educator, I think the education system as we know it with standardized testing and all that fails on so many levels. And I'm really excited to see the approach that you guys are taking. I would like to offer too, if you need any help, please reach out to me. I do have a lot of experience as well. So, but really compliments, pats on the back to all of you. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Those are kind words indeed. Thank you. All right. Well,
Can I say something?
Oh, please. Yep.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say when I was invited onto the board, I was really excited. And when I met with everybody initially, like to answer these questions kind of at a more base and simple form, everybody was really passionate about how much they wanted to see some sort of change, and really kind of looking at the world through a child's perspective, and kind of creating or cultivating that innate wonder and that sense of creativity that's like already in children. And so that really spoke to me, because I think that's something that was largely missing in my education growing up. And like, it's almost like now being older, I have to relearn all this stuff, because it's, it's so exciting. And I think there's a market for a desire for learning in children. And I think that this school, from my initial sense, that's the sense that I got from Engelmann. And I think that's what sets it apart from public schools and also other private schools.
We definitely think so.
It could be a great trailblazer school for this type of model for the whole Salt Lake area. Really, I think we really have a lot of people in the greater Salt Lake, area that would be so excited. We have some forest preschools or some outdoor based preschools, but we don't have any schools really going much beyond the preschool age. And so it's really kind of could be the groundbreaking, pave the way school that could set an example for others to follow.
That's the vision, I think. Well, I just want to say in closing, if there aren't any other comments or questions, thank you all so much for attending. We are so excited, and we feel so lucky to have the support of all of you, and excited to move forward. And so, here's to learning through adventure. So thank you so much. Stay tuned, and you can unmute, and a round of applause, and thank you to all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
everyone.
Bravo.
That was really well done.
Oh, everyone, real quick, there's on the chat section, there's links to t-shirts and the GoFundMe page, and also to the YouTube video. So
Save me a small. Can you get him?
Thank you all, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Why you put that?
Is this when the tequila comes out?
Why you put this
Good.
here?
Put it in your ears so that I could hear, but now I took it out, and so now we can see everybody saying goodbye.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
That was very exciting.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Abby right there.
That is Abby.
Bye or bye.
Say good night to everybody.
Bye.
Okay. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Okay. Very good.